of Minds. If you guys are new here, my name is Kayla Briggs. I do a little bit of everything from vlogs to movie, TV show reviews, and obviously Saturday hot takes. I love to talk about anything that's in the news that I am interested currently. So yeah, today we are going to be doing an interesting video about The Good Nurse. So let's get into it. Okay, so I recently just watched The Good Nurse. I loved it. I really thought it was a really good movie, and at times it really got me really pissed off, really aggravated, really angry. So I want to talk about it. So I'm gonna do a really quick kind of a review of it and tell you a little bit about the story, but I'm not going to reveal too much because I think you guys should watch it. So let's get into it. So the movie starts out with Amy Lorfrin. I'm not really good at last names, but her name's Amy, and they call her Nurse Amy, and she is basically what they call the good nurse. Amy is in the beginning of the movie. She is suffering from a heart condition, and obviously she does a physically heart intensive job. She's a night nurse. Out of all the nurses she could be, she's a night nurse. And there's not a lot of people, I guess, on her side of the ward, so she kind of is by herself taking care of all these patients. And then eventually someone else gets hired, and his name is Charles Cullen, also known as Charlie. Charles Cullen is actually a real person. This is actually based off of the true story of a nurse serial killer. So Charles Cullen has transferred from 9 hospitals previously before he got to the hospital where Amy works at, and this was not like a red flag for anybody for some reason. It was just kind of normal, and basically he starts at this new job with Amy, and one day he noticed that she's struggling with her heart condition, and that's when Amy reveals that she does have a heart condition. She needs a transplant, but she needs 3 months or 4 months actually, of just working at the hospital, because in 4 months she will be given her insurance basically. So she has to tough it out even though her heart is basically really failing her. So Colin is like, I will help you out as much as I can, and we'll get through this together. So they start building a bond, and it becomes like a consistent thing. They're building a bond, they're like having a good time, until one of Amy's old patients, dies. And this patient had an adverse reaction to, I believe it was amoxicillin, and she basically was like kind of peeling, and it was really bad. But she was healing, and she was on the upwards. She was going to be discharged very soon, and then suddenly she dies. And it was very shocking, but no one really thought anything of it until they started doing an investigation on the death. And this is by the hospital. The hospital did an internal investigation, but then they called into the police. And so 2 interrogators come in, and they tried to kind of figure out why the hospital needs them and what they need them to do. But also at the same time, the hospital is withholding basically evidence and they're basically withholding a lot of the case of how this patient had died. They knew it was suspicious, but they didn't want the police to be involved, but their board that's higher than them said that you have to call the police. And so basically the whole time, during the time the investigators are trying to figure out this death, the hospital's not being very cooperative. they did an announcement, just the risk manager and the lawyer, and basically said that, you know, you have to keep everything confidential about the patient. You can't tell the police anything by yourself. Someone has to be with you, like a hospital staff has to be with you, and we are, you know, gonna help you guys through this. But basically they're saying, like, if you talk to them outside of like the hospital without a hospital staff, you're gonna be fired, basically is what they're saying. So of course it's gonna be scary. And the interrogators didn't want them to be in the room while they're interrogating nurses. But unfortunately they could not fight against it. So basically, Amy is then called into the room one of those days of them interrogating nurses, and during that time the risk manager had to leave because of somebody needing her. And during that time the interrogators were able to show Amy the patient's vital signs, I guess. And Amy was able to tell them that she had a high number of insulin, and this high number means that the body did not produce this amount of insulin, and that it was in fact injected into her. So after this, they quickly took the paper away, and they were able to figure out that, hey, Amy could possibly help us. But then they talked to her about the new guy, which is Charles Cullen, and they said that he has a little bit of a record, and that, you know, could it be him? And she said, no, you know, he's amazing, he's a great nurse, he would never do that. And basically the movie goes on, and I think Amy starts to second guess this. She starts to see there's other people dying, and she sees that a young mom dies, and this young mom wasn't supposed to die. She was on the way up, she was doing great, and now her husband was left without a baby. And that was, like, obviously the hardest part. I think that hit her really hard, and she was shocked about it. So she kind of decides to go meet up with someone that she met before, and this is also a person that Charles Cullen worked with before, and she decided to meet up with this other nurse and talk about Charles Cullen. And the other nurse was able to reveal that, yeah, there were suspicious deaths happening, but they all stopped when Charles Cullen left. And she thought that was very shocking, but she just never was able to tell the police that because she's scared of losing her job. And this really scared Amy. And she asked, you know, how do you think he was doing it and stuff like that? And they were able to tell her that he was doing it by putting it in their vital bags, I guess, and kind of like this really clear water bag. And obviously they put that on each patient, so no matter what you're doing, they put that on you. So basically she runs to the hospital. She's able to find out that, yeah, he is in fact injecting insulin and another drug. This is when Amy decides to basically start helping the investigators, because she's learning, like, that he is in fact killing people and he needs to be stopped. But she's also, you know, working her shifts with him, and so she watches that he's actually putting these bags, you know, on these people, and she goes and switches them out because she's like realizing that. So basically she's able to help them out and figure this out and print out all his, like, records of him taking out medications and stuff like that. But when she prints out these records, they say cancel. And basically Charles Cullen learned that there was a fault in the system, and if you hit cancel while it's still kind of processing, you're able to kind of still take the medication out. And he did this one time for Amy, and Amy saw, he told her about the fault, but it never really just registered in her head that this was the way he was doing it. But she was able to print it out, and she was able to see that he was indeed printing out this insulin and these Ds and taking them out multiple times a night, etc. So when this all comes to light and she's able to show, like, you know, the interrogators and stuff, they were like, well, it says cancel at the bottom, so we can't do anything with these things because it says cancel. And so she's like, okay, so what do we have to do next? And basically now they are needing a confession from Charles Cullen. So she sets up a lunch with Charles Cullen. But before we get there, Charles Cullen is actually fired from the hospital. And the reason why they say it is because he lied on his application, but really it was just like a minor issue of him forgetting the date that he started and ended. But basically they were firing him really because they knew that he was the one who was possibly killing patients. But instead of getting him fired and arrested, they were like, oh, we're gonna fire you because of this, but we don't want to reveal that you actually are killing patients. Can you imagine? This is true. This is a true story, by the way. 9 hospitals. So he shows up at this lunch to meet with Amy, and he's talking about how he's starting a new job. He's going to another hospital. Yeah. Just that quick, he was able to go to another hospital. You think that's ridiculous? I think so. So basically he's going to another hospital and he's talking to Amy about going to this new hospital. But Amy's like, hey, I want to talk about, you know, our hospital that we worked at together and the deaths and stuff like that. And he gets really angry, slams the table. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. And she's trying to get a confession, and he was like, you know what, I'll call you later, I'm leaving. And he leaves. But the interrogators decide that they're gonna arrest him and try and get a confession out of him. So while he's driving to his new job, yada yada, he gets arrested. The interrogators try and get a confession out of him, but he is not giving up. He's like, I can't talk about patients, it's patient confidentiality, blah 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 blah. So the interrogators tell Amy this and are like, hey, we can't get an admission from this dude. We're gonna have to let him go. And through the night, Amy starts to realize, like, maybe I could do it. I think this is when she decides, you know what, I'm gonna do it myself. And so Amy goes to the police station and decides she's gonna interrogate Charles by herself. And so she goes into a room and she plays it up really freaking good. She's like, you're such a good person, and you know, I need you. I always will need you, but right now I need you to do something for me. And he's like, what do you need me to do? And she's like, I need you to confess. And he does. He confesses. He's like, yes, I did it. And he's able to tell her, you know, some of the patients, but not all of them, because he forgot. Yeah, he forgets who he kills. And he's able to tell her that he killed other people in another hospital and in another one. And when she asks him why, he's like, because they never told me to stop, basically. That basically the hospitals never caught him and never told him to stop killing these people. Yeah. It's not really a true why, but it makes no sense. Like, what do you mean? Like, but why are you killing people in the first place? We don't know why he was doing it. It makes no sense. We know that he's divorced. We know that his mom died. That could be, you know, a reason, but it made no sense why he was just killing all these people. And it took a nurse who decided that she wasn't going to stand by these people dying and risked her job, her life, basically, because if she would have gotten caught by her, like, you know, hospital, she could have lost her insurance and she would have died because her heart was failing. But she decided to risk it all because she didn't want more people to die. And to imagine that right now they only know about 29, but they think he killed over 400 people. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And he was transferred from 9 hospitals and he was going to a new hospital. And basically what that is saying is that these hospitals weren't caring about people dying. They were caring about what their image was going to look like and their reputations. They didn't care that there was a nurse that was basically killing their patients, but they didn't want an interrogation. They didn't want a internal review that was going to show that this guy right here, this guy was going around and killing people, killing a mother of a baby and leaving a father without a wife and leaving a baby without a mother. Can you imagine? And that's just one story. There's so many others that, you know, we didn't get to see in the movie, but I bet so many lives were affected by this. And for them to just say, we're not going to do anything, is shocking. Very scary and tricky to touch on, because a lot of nurses will protect their nurses and basically said he could have done it, you know, they could have done it like by an accident. But when it's like it takes multiple people dying, when it takes multiple patients dying from a person for them to say, oh yeah, they're actually killing. But when it's one and it's suspicious, it's kind of like, oh no, they didn't do it. And I'm not a nurse. I don't know what it's like to be a nurse. But I understand that there's a lot of pressure on nurses, and I understand that they can make a mistake, and I get that. But it upsets me that it has to take multiple people to die for them to decide, like, yeah, this person is actually messing up on purpose. And this movie is just so aggravating because this hospital was not helping, and this hospital and all the other hospitals were just covering it up and didn't want to tell investigators what they needed to know. Instead, they were like, we don't know. But they did know. They did know that he was the one who was killing these people. And it took someone who was basically, you know, dying to basically say, I'm going to help you as much as I can. And that's really upsetting to me. And these hospitals were never charged with anything. They never got in trouble with anything. They were gotten off scot-free, even though they were the ones who were covering it up, who were basically allowing him to do this. And I don't know about you, but that's also very upsetting to me. Like, are you serious? They weren't charged with anything. I feel like they should have been charged with at least something, but they weren't charged. So yeah, that is the story, and this is a true story. Charles Cullen killed multiple patients, lots of patients, and we don't know the actual count. It's still probably counting. No one really knows, but he did it. And if you guys want to look at his real interrogation, there's like a lot of videos about his real interrogation. I really recommend the movie because it brings to light a lot of things, and a lot of things that can happen in the hospital and how the hospitals sometimes run. He's now in the New Jersey penitentiary or something like that. He's in New Jersey somewhere, and he is still serving time for what he did. He will not be getting out until 2403. Yeah, they charged him with 400 years. So he is not getting out anytime soon, and he will be in jail for the rest of his life until he dies. Basically, he confessed to the murders and to get out of the death row, I guess. But nonetheless, the judge was like, let me charge you with 400 years. So thankfully he did. And yeah, he's gonna die in jail, which is good for him because I don't care. He should die in jail. Yeah, that is it for today. That's the video that I have for today. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.